Hey there, let's talk clamshells. It is one of my least favorite exercises for a bunch of reasons, and I'm going to explain one of those reasons now, and I'm going to tell you a way that you can make it even better. It's not on my top, but for a lot of people who do them, because it's an often prescribed exercise and people will do it, here's how you can make it better for yourself and for those teaching. So when we're looking at clamshells, what we're looking at is the leg bone is moving in the hip socket, like so, yeah? And so we're moving that leg bone in the hip socket, and it's moving in mostly like a rotational plane. There's a little bit of abduction going on. What's not happening though is there's not hip flexion going on. There's not, ideally, rotation of that pelvis. There's not leaning or leaning. We want to help it be as smooth as possible into that hip. Now, here's the thing that does not work well with clamshells, is a lot of times this movement that's meant to be here in the hip socket, all that other stuff is happening. There's bracing in the rib cage. The rib cage is moving back or forward. The pelvis is moving forward or back. The hip flexors are highly involved. And those compensatory patternings, those then start to train the neuromuscular dynamic of like, okay, well, this is what the body believes a clamshell to be. So even though we're trying to get into a certain area of the hip, what our brain and our body then gets to know is that, oh, to do this movement, you use your QL or your ribs, or you have to tilt your pelvis forward and you start to hone in these habitual patterns that you don't actually want. And then the effect of the clamshell, it really is not as effective at all. Yeah. So to make it a bit better, I want you to just kind of play with this. So if you're here on your side, find the where the leg bone meets your pelvis and just take that into hip flexion a little bit so that you're going to feel your hip flexors start to connect, yeah? So that then when you're here and you begin to raise that leg up like so, the front of your hip is soft. And you might be wondering, well, how the heck am I going to do that? I know. That's the point. A lot of people don't know how to do that, right? Because they haven't been taught to do that. So here, I'm going to put my head on the pillow. I'm going to take my hand to the front of the hip, and then I'm going to come here, and I'm going to say, hey, wake up! Wake up! Hello! Hello in there! Hello, 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 hello. Okay, so now you've got a little bit of awareness here. And then I've got my hands here. And now I'm saying, okay, this is where I want you to move your leg from. This is where I want you to move your leg from. Here, right here. Yeah? And not from here. So it's like soften up in through the front of the hip. Only move as far as, I'm just going to angle myself here a bit more. Only move as far as that leg bone moves in the hip socket without the front of the hip firing and utilizing back here. So many people, this is like, and it's a big reason when I see people in my practice who are doing that exercise and they're wondering why their back's not getting better. They're wondering why their hip's not improving. They're wondering all the things. That is a big reason why. So if you can just focus in on that front of the hip, it's going to be harder at first. You're likely not going to move as much initially. That's okay. At least you're moving more purely. At least you're moving with less compensation. At least you're honing the motor control pattern. That is important for you to hone for the exercise to be helpful. All right, so enjoy that. We'll see you next time.